Hi, I'm Elizabeth LaPro, and I'm joining the Birthplace of Country Music Museum today to talk about ballads, Appalachian ballads. So you might be wondering, what is a ballad? And the really broad definition is that it's a song that tells a story. Why would a song tell a story? Well, you have to go back in time a little bit and imagine a long time ago, maybe 100 years ago or more, before TV existed, before radio existed. And imagine a time when a lot of what people did for entertainment was play games and play music and tell stories to entertain each other. So ballads are songs that tell stories. And Appalachian ballads in particular are a historical form of song. So some of them might be maybe 300 or 400 years old even. And they originated in Europe, especially in the British Isles. And they came with immigrants over the ocean to America. And then those same people traveled into the mountains of Appalachia and stayed there, playing their music, singing their songs, and passing them on to the next generation. So a ballad would sound something like this. There was a knight and a lady gay, and 3 little babes had she. She sent them away to a far country to learn their grammar. And that's from a song called The 3 Little Babes. It's also known as The Wife of Usher's Well. So you can hear it starts out as a story. It talks about a knight, like an old-fashioned knight, maybe that would be in a castle, and a lady gay. That means, like a fair lady. And 3 little babes had she, 3 little children. She sent them away to a far country to learn their grammar. Grammar is any kind of knowledge, but maybe especially like grammar. You might think about learning grammar in school, but especially also magic knowledge. So that's just one verse, and the rest of the story goes on to tell what else happens. And that's an example of a song that tells a story, a ballad. And that comes from a singer who lived in Saltville, Virginia, and then moved to Salem, Virginia, named Texas Gladden. And she sang that song that she learned, I think, from her mother or someone else in her family who had come from England and passed it down in their family. The origins of ballads are actually so far back in time that even if you went back, like I said, 300 or 400 years to when they were written, even if you went back that far, you wouldn't actually know who had written them because they've been part of the tradition for so long, and no one ever wrote down who made the song. So that's part of something called an oral tradition, which means that it's passed through word of mouth. Kind of like if you've ever played the game telephone, you might have someone like whisper in your ear, and then you try to turn to the next person and whisper the same thing. But if you don't hear it quite exactly right, you're just trying to repeat mostly what you heard. By the time it gets back around to the last person in the circle, that message has changed. In the same way as the ballads get passed from one singer to another on down through many generations, the words will change a little bit, and the meanings will change a little bit, but the story will mostly stay the same. There's a cool example that highlights the connection between European ballads and their American descendants. There's a ballad that started out in 18th century Scotland, and then it made its way to America, where a version of it was later recorded at the Bristol Sessions in 1927. So the song was first written down in the late 1700s in Scotland, and it was known by the title Lord Gregory. It's a sad love song, tale of love gone wrong. So then it went on to have other names and other variations on its lyrics and music. But a version of it was recorded here in Bristol in 1927 by the Carter family, and it was called "The Storms Are on the Ocean." So you can probably listen to an example of that if you want to hear how that song has changed. One thing you might notice from the examples of my singing ballads is that they might sound a little bit different from a lot of songs that you hear on the radio. And a ballad has its own stylistic way of being sung. And one of the most noticeable is that it's just one singer singing by themselves, sometimes not even accompanied by any instrument. And that's a very old way of singing them. If you hear the example of "The Storms Are on the Ocean" from the Bristol sessions in 1927, you would hear a guitar playing with the Carter family and multiple voices singing. That marks a really big change in how the music was played. So one thing that the Carter family did was they heard all these ballads that their neighbors were singing, maybe some that were sung in their family, and they even walked around and collected and wrote down different verses that they liked, and then they would make their own song out of the background of these old songs, and they would put it to guitar, and they would put vocal harmonies to it, and that really changed the sound. So it's a big shift from the ballad style, which is because it's just one singer and because there's no instrument. As well, you might notice that the storms are on the ocean, the heavens may cease to be, this world may lose its motion, love, if I falls to thee. Because it has a guitar with it and it's in a waltz time, it's something you could definitely tap your foot to or even dance to. But in the example of the older ballad, "When I first come to this country in 1849, I saw many fair lovers, but I never saw mine." There's nowhere really to tap your foot to that. It's what's known as unmetered. So there's no beat to it. You can't tap your foot. Not all the ballads in America came from Europe. Some were written here by the people that already were familiar with that tradition. One example is John Henry, Ballad of John Henry. If you're familiar with that story, it's a man who was working on a prison team, digging a tunnel, and then a new steam drill was bought, and he worked against the steam drill to see who could go faster, and he actually worked even faster than this new machine that was made just for digging. But he died in the effort. It's this really sad and still inspiring song. The Ballad of John Henry is one that was written in the United States. There's lots of other ones. I've talked a lot about the way that ballads were sung in the past, and I've talked a lot about the tradition in the past. But you might be wondering, does anybody sing these songs now besides me, Elizabeth? And the answer is yeah. There's a lot of people still learning and teaching, passing on ballads. There's a lot of ballads that are written down in books and actually have been written in books for hundreds of years themselves, that are just waiting for people to go in and read them and take them out and sing them. But at the same time, there's also lots of gatherings where people get together just to sing ballads and swap them back and forth, or song circles. And there's lots of people still recording ballads, and there's still people writing ballads as well. So they may not be the most popular form, but they've been a big part of American music history and shaped a lot of modern music as well.